perfect summer's day on Sydney's Bondi beach. Swimmers, surfers and families bask in our national birthright to enjoy our beaches without fear. We feel safe here at Bondi Beach because we're under the ever-vigilant gaze of the world's most famous lifeguards, and because a few hundred metres offshore there are nets, which we're led to believe protect us from sharks. Below the surface is another story. At 51 New South Wales beaches, nets like these trap sharks and other sea creatures. They're only 150 metres long and wide open at the top.
There's still this misconception that the shark net is a barrier. It's not, it's a fishing device. It's a couple of 100 metres long. There might be two at a beach, which is many, many kilometres long. They're set at a depth offshore where they don't reach to the surface, so they only come up 6 metres or so from the bottom in 10 metres of water. In some respects, you have to be an unlucky shark to get caught.
Today, no sharks were caught. Government contractors arrived in time to set 3 stingrays free.
Shark nets at Bondi Beach have caught white sharks, and if you did, you can't bite anybody. What we don't know is whether that shark would have ever bitten anybody, and we don't know how many sharks swam through the area that didn't get caught.
Australia's most feared sharks are great whites, responsible for more fatal attacks than any other species. With its tens of thousands of seals, the Neptune Islands in South Australia are a great white hunting ground.
One to see. Shark! Shark.
There it is. There's a white. Oh, jeez. Wow. Huge. I came down to see the animals for myself.
Please keep your arms inside the cage. They're not cute and cuddly. They are a wild animal, and that's a pretty bloody big one too.
Scientists estimate that there are about 1,700 of them around Australia's coast. Our boat had barely stopped before they were circling.
Sort of getting in there is a bit terrifying. They're definitely attracted to the boat. You need to come to the surface. A good foot of the cage sticks above the water. When the cage is in, it's going to be sitting in the water, floating independently to the boat, but it will be held against the boat with a couple of nice heavy ropes so the old shark can't bite through it. We'll get the cage in the water and get this first group of divers in. Spin round on the ladder and face us.
The sharks can't resist the lure of chunks of tuna guts tossed out on the end of ropes.
Oh, he's got it.
Now I'll get to see one of these white sharks up close.
Look at that! Wow! That was amazing! They love to attack from below, attacking prey sitting on the surface. That is exactly where swimmers and surfers are. Magnificent creatures. Never really felt quite so small and vulnerable and insignificant as I do right now.
Wow. Amazing creatures. Wouldn't want to meet one on the surf.
Most of the time, when sharks and people are in the same proximity with each other, sharks don't bite people. And this is one of the real challenges in understanding shark attack, because we're looking at the exception rather than what normally happens. There will be a relationship between number of attacks and numbers of sharks, But it's not a straightforward relationship. You can have areas where there are a lot of sharks and no attacks. You can have areas where there are very few sharks and an attack. We bubble oxygenated water through the gills to keep them calm.
Barry Bruce is the CSIRO's top great white expert.
As you can see, white sharks travel extensively across their Australian range, and including across the Tasman Sea to New Zealand. So these are all
the tagging of great whites has revealed they have two distinct populations.
The sharks we tagged in Eastern Australia generally stayed in Eastern Australia or went to New Zealand and back. And the sharks we tagged west of Bass Strait in South Australia and Western Australia tended to move through Western Australian and South Australian waters. So it appeared that Bass Strait was almost a barrier. That's about the northern range of white sharks in Australian waters.
Tagging also shows a concentration of young great whites off the coast of Port Stephens in New South Wales.
Incredible situation. It's a nursery area for white sharks, and it's quite geographically discrete. It's only on a few beaches. And if you've swum at those beaches, you would have swum with white sharks. Interestingly, on those particular coastal beaches, there haven't been an attack. There's been attacks around that area, but not on the beaches where the sharks spend most of their time.
Further up the New South Wales north coast, there was a cluster of shark attacks last year. Close to Australia's easternmost point, the beach town of Ballina has been in the grip of intense shark fear. I came here to get a taste of it. There were 9 shark attacks in the area last year, and one of those was fatal. Don Munro is the president of the local board riders club. Today is the first competition since Ballina's last shark attack.
You're not having these events as much as usual, so what's the feeling?
Well, the feeling is we've got to be on red alert to ensure that the guys that are in the water are going to be safe in the water. We've had a situation today where we have called them in. It did look like we'd spotted a shark or two.
I mean, it's always in the back of your mind, but you try not to think about it.
It's like there's two ways of thinking about it. Either completely ignore it or let it completely consume you, you know? And there's examples of both. So it's...
But surfing's always like that, right? It's always slightly in the back of your mind when you're surfing.
Yeah, but no, it never really was. Yeah, right. You know, like you'd paddle out, you know, in dirty water on dark and not even think about it. And now you kind of really weigh up, hey, is the surf that good for me to lose a leg? If it's pumping, yeah, well, it is worth it.
You've got a lot of dolphins around that surfer. He's looking a bit nervous.
Yeah, well that's right. You know, the huge pod of dolphins there. That's a bigger pod than we normally would see. Intermixed with them could have been sharks. So I'd say highly unlikely that there's not a shark or sharks out there.
Yeah. Are you worried about the sharks? Are you worried about the sharks and the kids?
Yeah, a little bit. We're just trying to be sensible about it. You know, like obviously a lot of eyes on the beach, keeping an eye on it. We've got a lot of choppers going over, so that always makes us feel a little bit, you know, safe. You look for diving fish, and as I said, we're just trying to be sensible about it. You know, like that's all you can really do. And you know, we don't want to stop surfing. We don't want the sharks to stop us from doing what we love. So, you know, we're just trying to get on with it as best we can and as safely as possible as well.
Tadashi was taken in February, which is the middle of summer.
And that's when it started, really.
That's when it started, and it picked up pace. You know, there was sighting after sighting.
Darren Rogers is struggling to get past his experience of a fatal attack in Ballina 1 year ago. He helped pull Tadashi Nakahara from the water after the surfer was mortally mauled by a great white shark.
These are all about Tadashi. When they closed the beach, it's all buried in here. And of course, every time there's a new attack, the first thing that they mention, or straight after it, is that in February 9, Tadashi Nakahara was fatally attacked at Shelley Beach.
Darren's barely surfed since the attack.
It's still hard, very hard for me to tell the story. But the thing that is the most is his eyes for me. I can't forget his eyes, and they're the things that I just see his eyes all the time.
He gave a dying Tadashi CPR.
Is it something to do with the fact that for you,
Yes.
surfing was synonymous with life,
Yes.
and then suddenly surfing became synonymous with death?
Yeah, and even more than death, with horror, absolute horror. And that's my favourite beach as well. And it was a perfect day, beautiful day, clear water, February.
Few have seen more of what shark bites can do to human bodies than Ballina's surf lifesavers. Tadashi Nakahara was beyond saving. But the rapid response of these men, working with a rescue helicopter, saved the lives of surfer Sam Morgan and bodyboarder Matt Lee, both bitten at Ballina's Lighthouse Beach.
They survived, but it wasn't a guaranteed thing, was it?
No, Matt was very lucky. Like, I don't know if you heard, but the rescue helicopters, first week they were carrying blood. If they
It was the
weren't-
first week they were carrying blood.
Exactly. If they weren't carrying blood supplies, like, I'd hate to think what the outcome would have been.
Gary Meredith has been the first responder at every recent shark attack in Ballina. That experience has diminished his and fellow lifesaver Mark Puglisi's lifelong love of the sea.
I've had a very, very long history with the ocean. I was a commercial fisherman for many years before I joined the police force. I've seen a lot of sharks in my time, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. I wouldn't say there's any more sharks than what there has been for years, but there is definitely more sharks in on the beaches at the moment. I don't know why. I know there's a lot more bait fish around this time this year and last year.
These vast black shapes are schools of fish known as bait balls, and they were drawn to the beaches of the New South Wales north coast last year. Chasing them were dolphins and big fish, including sharks.
There was certainly a lot of stuff happening up in the Ballina area last year, with schools of bait fish, with whales, with pods of dolphins, with pelagic fish, with sharks moving in the area. It was a really interesting biological event, and I know when we spoke to locals up there, they were unanimous in that they hadn't seen that sort of bait fish activity in that area for a very long time, or not at all. So clearly something was going on up there, but that's a natural event, and that's why the sharks were there, because it was a good place to feed.
Surfers in the water were filmed seemingly unaware of the great whites beneath them.
Definitely the bait balls are probably playing a part in it, but again, I've grown up here all my life. I grew up at Shelley Beach, and I've never seen, and I surf morning and night, I've never seen sharks in so close, and especially whites, you know, you never see whites. You often hear the guys, the divers at Byron Bay saying, oh yeah, we saw white on our dive at Julian Rocks occasionally, but you know, nothing like what we're seeing now.
Are you swimming, surfing? Are you letting your kids swim or surf?
No, and I enjoy swimming in summertime, and I've got a couple of little kids, and I was down at South Ballina recently, and I would have quite happily 18 months ago put the kids in the water and swam in the channels and that, but there's no way in the world, no, I wouldn't go in there.
Doesn't feel like a safe family outing.
Not at all. It's certainly changed things for me. I wouldn't swim, and I certainly wouldn't surf. No way. No.
The north wall of Ballina's Lighthouse Beach separates it from where the Richmond River reaches the sea. It's a well-known habitat for bull sharks, one of the 3 species most dangerous to humans and the only shark that swims between fresh and salt water. It was a bull shark which mauled 20-year-old pro surfer Sam Morgan here last November. The same spot where a bull shark killed 16-year-old bodyboarder Peter Edmonds 8 years ago.
Surfers are out there now, but there's a lot of birds diving for fish and there's dolphins too. Looks pretty sharky to me.
I feel anxious every day, especially if it's a beautiful day.
Ballina's mayor David Wright regularly comes to the North Wall. Bull shark sightings are common.
Did you just see a shark a while ago, or?
Yeah, first cast.
Yeah. What,
Came right up behind the lure.
Oh. How big?
Not that big, 5 or 6 feet. Nice and chunky though.
Yeah, bull shark.
Just as I was bringing the lure up, it came right up behind it and had a swipe at it. Right in front of my feet.
These guys are actually, surfing where 2 of our attacks have taken place. So, yes, but we can't force people to get out of the water. It's really up to them.
Some locals want shark netting up here. The government has ruled it out.
Certainly the surfing fraternity at the moment would be quite happy with them, but the majority of people up here, particularly in Byron and Lennox and through here to Ballina, they're very environment conscious, so I don't think that, and the state government's not going to do it.
We are committed to protecting people with minimal impact on the environment. In the northern New South Wales region, there's a very productive and prolific wildlife situation, and putting nets in there would kill a lot of dolphins and a lot of turtles very quickly, and we don't believe that that's necessary.
Over the border, it's a cost Queensland has been willing to wear in places like the Gold Coast, where sharks and other marine animals are killed with nets and baited hooks known as drumlines.
So there's about 365 drumlines up and down the coast of Queensland, and there's about 30 shark nets, just like this one here.
Sea Shepherd took me out to inspect Australia's most extensive and destructive shark mitigation program.
We're just coming up to another section of the net where those orange buoys are, but in between there's a huge gap.
These nets and drumlines are effective killers. Most of the 78,000 animals caught in them have died.
So this is one of the drum lines that the sharks are meant to take. If there was a shark on it, it'd be pulled down or moving around. I'm just going to go down and have a look. As you can see, the bait's been taken. Probably not by a shark.
This rare footage reveals dolphins carefully picking a drumline clean. They get away with it this time, but are not always successful. Sea Shepherd filmed a baby dolphin hooked on a Queensland drumline. Needing air like we do, it was kept alive only by its mother repeatedly pushing it to the surface.
So we're seeing dolphins dying, we're seeing turtles and also rays are dying. We've seen dugongs die in the shark nets particularly. So it's a huge range. It's not just sharks that are dying in these. This is a marine cull as far as I'm concerned.
"27 species of shark are targeted in Queensland, although most attacks are by tiger sharks. 13,000 of them have been killed since 1962. But according to marine scientist Jessica Maywig, that does not mean people are safer in the water.
That assumes that there's a proportional relationship between the abundance of sharks and the number of incidents. And actually the best predictor of the number of incidents is the number of humans. And we've shown time and time again that even when we reduce those numbers, it doesn't affect the incident rate because it's largely a random process. It's a rare random event, and when it happens to somebody, they're incredibly unlucky. But although you'd like to think that there's a relationship there between more sharks equals more bites, it doesn't work that way. So if 85% of the areas where you put drum lines never had a fatality before the drum lines came on, certainly the fact that there are none since is misleading to use that as evidence of their benefits. If you look carefully at that Queensland data, you can see zero safety benefit of those drum lines.
Just like in New South Wales, Queensland's nets are far from being barriers that stop sharks visiting beaches.
There's a huge hole in that net and a big gap below it. But just over there, people are swimming on the Gold Coast without fear of sharks. It's a fascinating difference between the way they're behaving and the people in Ballina are behaving.
Attack survivors have every reason to fear sharks, but have very different views about what should be done.
One guy might hate all the sharks, and he's got a good reason, and he wants to go and kill them all. And that's fine, that's what's getting him through. One guy might turn to shark conservation and want to join that part. For us, as a group, we don't buy into any of that. But what we do as a group is support each other. Most of us...
After being attacked by a bull shark 5 years ago, Dave Pearson started a support group for survivors called Bite Club.
But what is it about a shark attack that actually creates a common feeling?
The thing that I think dawns on me a lot is it's the thought of being eaten alive while you're still alive. And that is the thing that, this is primal. Like, this is back to caveman days where, I don't want to over-dramatise it, but that's what it's like. You've got no control over a wild animal trying to eat you, and that's what it's trying to do. And we all hear it's only coming in for an exploratory bite, but when you've been taken underwater and you're fighting for your life against a fish, it's not an exploratory bite. I can tell you when they're shaking you around under the water. And
Bruce Lucas and Dale Carr were mauled by great whites. Kevin Young is a member because his son Zach was killed by a tiger shark in 2013.
What do you think should be done?
Just probably more study and research. And will culling help? Maybe, maybe not, but I don't think it's the right way to go. Just because something, at the end of the day, we are in their domain. You just don't go around and kill something just for the sake of it.
So Craig, where did it happen?
Just happened out there, Jeff, just up beyond that little wave that just broke.
Paddling out early one morning at Evans Head, 40 kilometres south of Ballina, Craig Ison saw the fin and tail of a 3-metre juvenile great white shark.
Yep. Crashed as far as I can go. Yeah. With my hand hanging down here like this, looking, and that's when I saw the shark up in about 6 foot up in the air, doing a U-turn, facing towards like that to straighten up to come and get me. So, boom, down from that angle.
So you think the shark went deliberately into the air?
Yeah.
And turned and targeted you?
Yeah, because he wouldn't have caught us if he went underwater. He had to actually launch himself up in the air to have a chance to get to us.
Because it was too shallow?
Yeah.
He wanted you that bad?
He wanted us that bad, yeah. I've never had anything want to kill me so bad in my life. I never want to experience that. His bottom jaw is in there, and his top teeth on top of my leg, and this rail is right up at the end of his... So he can't handle the pressure to close it.
He's trying to bite through it.
He's trying to bite through it, but he can't because he hasn't got any power there. And he can't release his bottom jaw because they're stuck in the foam on here, and his top's he's thrashing like this. His head's going like this, and his whole tail's going whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
And this is not here, but on your upper leg.
Yeah, on the upper leg. Yeah, he would have taken my leg clean off in one go. So I had a good look at those teeth, mate. They weren't baby teeth. Yeah. No, he would have.
Craig's left arm was trapped in the shark's mouth. But the former champion boxer refused to give up without a fight.
And unbelievably, the third hit, the one I tried to put my fist right through him, after hitting him that, he stopped shaking, just went dead still, went limp, all of a sudden he started sliding off me leg, off me board, and the teeth, he went down like that. He tried to close his mouth, but he couldn't. And those teeth were like the gates of hell, I tell you, mate, they're unbelievable. I'll never forget that.
Are you going to go out surfing here again?
Not unless they got barriers and that's there. No.
So you're done unless it's protected?
Absolutely.
The well-known shark-proof enclosure at Coogee Beach, New South Wales, is a fine example of the combat waged against the shark menace.
Australia's first attempt at shark-proofing a beach was at Coogee in Sydney in the 1930s, after a spate of shark attacks. A metal enclosure stretched from one headland to the other. While it was slowly destroyed by surf and salt, sharks were hunted and killed in the belief that attacks were being prevented.
And the head of a man-eating monster appears above the waterline. We can only guess at the number of fatalities which might have occurred had this man-eater been left at large.
80 years later, the theory is the same, that reducing local shark populations reduces the chance of attack.
He'll do no more damage. His cruising days are over.
Well, the shark meshing program has obviously been a long-term program since 1937. The idea has always been to reduce the chance of sharks setting up territories, and that's really how they've worked. So if there were shark nets off an area that did historically have a higher shark population, then obviously that shark population would be reduced.
Shark nets certainly reduce risk because they catch and kill sharks that have the potential to bite people. I guess what we don't know, we may never know, is to what extent the overall risk has been reduced by losing that shark.
Deakin University marine scientist Laurie Lawrenson says his research proves that shark nets on New South Wales beaches do nothing to prevent attacks. His new statistical analysis has found no relationship between shark populations in netted areas and the number of shark attacks.
What we specifically needed to do was look at whether there was a relationship between the numbers of sharks that are out there and the numbers of attacks. And there is no statistically demonstrable relationship. It's not there.
He's analysed decades of data about shark mitigation programs and human populations in South Africa and New South Wales.
So we got the population size from each area, and we related over the 50 odd years of data how that population changed relative to the attacks in that area. And there is a relationship between changing population size and the number of attacks of people. That is clear. So back to the basics. No relationship between the numbers of sharks out there, and there is a relationship between the number of people living on the coastline.
As part of this, we actually went through...
The New South Wales government has not statistically proven that shark netting makes people safer, but the state's chief shark scientist is a believer.
Can you put your hand on your heart and say that you believe the New South Wales shark meshing program prevents shark attacks?
Without a question of a doubt. I can definitely put my hand on my heart and say that I believe that shark nets work, and I believe that you are a lot safer at a netted beach. Not only because of the nets, but obviously also because they are at patrol beaches.
I can show statistically that there is no relationship between the number of sharks out there and the number of shark attacks. It's just simply not there. I'm surprised that it's not there, but it's not there.
We were never under the illusion that this campaign was going to be easy. We were up against a very powerful government.
When Western Australia started killing sharks to prevent shark attacks, protesters came out in their thousands.
We have no choice but to take on the Barnett government.
The protests were triggered by a culling program that started after 7 people were killed by great white sharks in just 3 years.
I noticed how round it was. You know, it was really, really big. It was a big, fat sort of shark, really beat up, old sort of looking. And then went around the back and then surfaced right here, and its gills are probably actually closer than where you are.
Surfer Ryan Soulis supports culling great whites in WA. He watched his best friend, Ben Linden, be taken by one after the shark suddenly lost interest in him.
Without a doubt in my mind, it wanted to eat me. You know, it wanted to eat me. And that's, you know, that's one thing that sort of kills you. That's one thing that you lose sleep over, definitely that. Not only did it want to eat me, you know, like I had a shark circling it wanted to eat me, but then I saw what it wanted how it wanted to eat me, you know what I mean? I saw what it did, but to my best mate, you know? I mean, that's just terrible.
It is an incredibly difficult situation for any community when you are having a cluster, which is essentially what happened the year Kyle died.
Sharon Burden's son, Kyle, was killed by a great white shark while bodyboarding at Margaret River in Western Australia in 2011.
He was the first of 5 that died within a short period of time. And it is to be expected that people will be very polarised in their views about how and what should be done.
Baited drum lines were set off Western Australia's coast over the summer of 2014.
Generally they'll be killed using a firearm, that's the most humane method.
They caught 172 sharks in a 3-month trial. 163 of them tiger sharks. Tiger sharks aren't known to have killed anyone in Western Australia for more than 20 years. Not a single great white was caught.
My son died from a great white. We don't know which great white shark it was. That great white shark could be anywhere around the oceans in its migratory path at any time. So what is the point of just dragging creatures out of the ocean and killing them? For what purpose?
Do you accept it was a failure? Do you wish it didn't happen?
Oh, I don't see it was a failure. It was a trial. So we caught what was caught, and the government made a decision based after that the trial ended.
An environmental impact review recommended Western Australia's drumline experiment end.
Do you think the drumline program in Western Australia made swimmers safer and surfers safer?
Well, that's something that you could probably only tell if it actually continued on. I mean, it was a short trial program. The important thing is that during the drumline program, no one was attacked. So from that perspective, you could actually say it was successful. It certainly wasn't not successful.
There's been one shark attack death in Western Australia since the cull finished. The state still has a reputation as a place where great whites haunt the beaches. I went up for a look with WA's surf lifesavers.
So if there was a shark out here now, you would see it?
Yep, they stand out pretty well on that white sand.
Different times of the year, obviously the whales are migrating up north. There's increased whale activity and also increased shark activity. With the sharks following the whales up and down.
And you get a lot of shark activity around Rottnest Island?
We tend to, yeah.
There was plenty of life to see from the air. Dolphins and fat seals were here in abundance. There were schools of baitfish too, but no sharks.
There's seals lying on the beach just down there. There's lots of reasons why sharks would like these waters. But we've just spent almost an hour flying up and down some of Western Australia's most popular beaches, out to Rottnest Island and back, and we haven't seen a single shark.
No one's worried about shark attacks at Perth's Coogee Beach. It's where Western Australia leads the country in effective shark protection. It's not a net that catches things, but a secure plastic barrier that keeps sharks out.
If you're worried about sharks, this is a secure enclosure. It goes all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top. It's a great net for this beach, where there's calm waters and no serious disturbance. But putting this on a serious surf beach is another question altogether.
A much bigger version will be trialled within the next few months at Ballina's Lighthouse Beach.
It'll go from the end of North Wall right across there to Lighthouse Point. And that means that these surfers will be covered, they'll be protected, nippers will be okay on the beach, and plus the safe areas for the lifesavers to patrol and people can swim. The Marine Rescue Tower has...
Ballina's shark barrier will have to withstand 4-metre swells and driftwood the size of trees.
Same materials, cable ties and fishing lines. Yeah.
Even the man who makes them isn't certain it will work.
Yeah, they're clipped together, put these in. Yes, it is uncertain. It is an untested product on a surf beach. You know, I mean, it's like everything. You have to put it out there to be able to be tested. I mean, at the end of the day, I have seen surf here up to 2 metres, 1.5 metres, and it handled it well. So, I mean, to put into a surf beach as such as Ballina, for sure it's going to be a test. There's no question. But, you know, I put my house on the line for it, and I believe that it'll do everything it's supposed to do.
There's a nice little wave there now. That one.
Darren Rogers used to surf every day.
Possibly have a jet ski out there patrolling for us as well.
Today he's going for a surf for just the 5th time since Tadashi Nakahara was killed.
It's a good feeling. It's always a good feeling to go surfing.
Oh yeah.
Although it has been hard. So
it's been a different feeling lately.
It's been a very different feeling lately, yes. Yes, it has.
Darren has a shark shield on the end of his board, an electric repellent which has been shown to reduce the chance of attack.
I hope so. I'm excited.
I'm a bit nervous.
I'm a little bit nervous myself. I've been very nervous when I've been surfing alone lately. I'll get the device, which will be hanging from the back of my board.
Yep.
So we're good to go. So let's go for a surf.
Yeah. We are barely back on the beach before a shark surveillance helicopter is circling, warning people out of the water.
There's definitely a shark here. This is the protocol that they do. The shark's just here. I think that is a long distance from there, and for a shark that's about 2 minutes. It's coming, come on. Okay, so it's all happening right now. This is the real deal.
A surf school group comes in, but some surfers stay out.
There's definitely a shark happening right here now. I cannot understand why these 2 kids aren't coming in.
Darren's memories of what a shark can do come flooding back.
I'm shaking. My hands are shaking. I've been through this before, and I know what can happen to those 2 guys. My whole body's shaking, and I'm very freaked out right now. It's just a very intense experience overall. Oh.
You know, I guess what I can't shake is we're looking for sharks now.
Yes.
Maybe they're out there all the time. Maybe now we're just hyper vigilant. You know, if you're surfing up and down the coast, you're out on a lonely point, you wouldn't know there was a shark there. You wouldn't have the chopper, so you wouldn't get freaked out. It's hard to know how much fear is tangible and justified and how much is being generated just within us.
Shark attacks are horrifying, and the sharks we kill cannot hurt us. The nets and drum lines on our beaches certainly make us feel safer. But we may have to accept that swimming and surfing in the open ocean is a bit like jogging through a wildlife park.
Did Kyle's death change your relationship with the ocean at all?
No, I've always loved the ocean. I swim where Kyle was killed, so no, I don't have any concerns.
And there's been no incident where Kyle died since?
No. If you think about a day like today, all around Australia, there would be tens of thousands of people in the ocean today. We cannot, the government cannot, put in place some strategies that will help protect every single one of those people on every single beach around our massive coastline. There has to be some form of strategy between don't do anything and kill everything. And there is this area in the middle where we really need people to move to, and that is, if I am going to a beach, I need to understand that there is a risk involved in these wild environments. But what can I do as a parent or as an individual, if I'm swimming or surfing or diving, that might help reduce those risks?